Well, before that verdict came down, a psychologist took the stand for the defense, saying that the former coach suffers from what's called histrionic personality disorder. It's characterized by a deep need for attention, and the psychologist says it may lead to inappropriate sexually seductive behavior. He says his 6-hour conversation with Sandusky was just part of his diagnosis. He also considered the notes, described as love letters to one of the accusers, and the 60-year-old's memoir touched the Jerry Sandusky story, which was published back in 2001.
We want to get a better understanding of what is histrionic personality disorder. So we brought in Dr. Michael Yaskinski of Yaskinski Psychiatry. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thanks.
You hear this and people say it's an excuse.
Yeah, is this a legitimate...
It's not a real thing.
Right.
What is it?
So it actually is a real diagnosis.
Okay.
Let's just put that out there. It's in our diagnostic manual, so it is a true diagnosis. But all of my colleagues pretty much accept that it's not an excuse for anything he did. So I've been trying to think of, people have been asking me this, and a good way to explain an example of what typically a true histrionic personality disorder might look like is take a reality show. The people on a reality show, especially women, much more common in women, and even men, those are the kind of people and the behaviors that typically outline histrionic personality disorder. So people really wanting to garner attention, wanting to be in the spotlight, kind of things that Jerry Sandusky really never displayed. And taking it to these letters, really those letters had nothing to do with his intent to molest children. So it was just a completely kind of distraction for the jury, basically.
Sure.
So now, is this a disorder that comes and goes just based on your environment, or is this something that once you are diagnosed with it, you're kind of stuck with it and you're always vying for the attention from people?
It's something that's genetically linked, so there's a risk if your family has it. It's something that shows up early on in teenage years, and it's something that lasts throughout your life. There's really no good treatment for it. Psychotherapy and kind of talk therapy can help people control some of the bad outcomes that come from his behavior or that behavior, but there's no fix to get rid of the disorder necessarily.
I mean, from what you're explaining, it sounds like someone who a bit obviously needy, someone who likes to be in the limelight, and usually it comes down to their own self-esteem of why they need this, and for his defense attorneys, of course, to use this, just outrageous?
Totally outrageous. I think really it goes back to them trying to distract the jury with showing that his intent with these letters that keep coming up wasn't to get the boys interested in liking him and wanting to molest them. He kind of wanted to show that this is just this personality disorder that's causing him to write this stuff, but he had no harm or intent to harm them. So I think that's the message he tried to get to the jury, but I don't think they bought it.
Well,
and no one else
obviously
did.
the jury didn't buy it.
Yeah, they weren't buying it, and no one else was buying it. I think it hurt him more than it helped by showing that, you know, clearly this is just BS excuse.
Someone who is a child molester, a sexual offender. We've heard in the past, oh, you know, using the excuse of they were themselves a victim, which of course is not an excuse as well. But can you give us any insight? What is going on through their mind? Why in the world did they think it's okay to do something like this? And in Jerry Sandusky's case, over and over and over again.
Right, so there's actually a lot of interesting data, especially recently with more technology showing that the brains of people with sexual addictions or child molesters have significantly different brain kind of development than other people. So there's one side of people that think this is something you're born with, kind of something that you can't control necessarily. We're not quite there yet. I think it definitely has a role in some physiology, but there's also the behavior side of it that, you know, can be controlled and treated. So a lot of people are saying this is something that you can't necessarily control and you're born with. Kind of an excuse to some degree, but there's definitely enough evidence saying that there is something going on inside of their head that is significantly different than most people. What I wonder with him is what happened in the last 10 years, because typically child molesters don't just stop behaving this way. So whether or not it was a lack of opportunity, I wonder what's been happening since then and how he's been handling that. There must have been something else there that we don't know about.
Or do we just not know and no one's come forward yet?
So I'm interested to see if more people come forward, if it was an internet.
They've mentioned that, yeah. They've mentioned there could be more victims out there that just didn't come forward. And why come forward now? He's facing up to 442 years in prison, so why come forward now? Because there's not much more they could really do to him.
And what it puts them through, the victims, I mean, even the people that have come forward, this is going to have a long-lasting effect.
And that's a whole other side of it is what the victim is going through.
I feel bad for the victims.
Sure.
I mean,
do they ever get over something like this?
There is some sense of, you know, he got convicted, and that feels good to some degree, but then this will go away and they're left with having to relive everything, and the appeals will go on for years, so they're going to relive everything for years. And I'll argue that I think in the end they'll probably be worse off for having to do this.
Wow.
I can't tell people not to want to come forward, but I think it's going to be very hard for the people that have to really get over this.
Okay, Dr. Yaskinski, thank you so much for bringing some insight into this obviously a high-profile case that's hopefully will encourage more people to come out knowing that justice can be brought.
For sure.
Okay, thank you so
very
much.
much. Yeah, I really appreciate it.